Hello everyone, my name is Veronica Williams, and for my presentation, I will be comparing the economies of Switzerland, Iraq, and Qatar. First, I'm going to go over every country and give you a little background on their government, their economy, and some of their economic strengths and weaknesses. So the first country I'm going to go over is Switzerland. Switzerland's government constitutes of three branches: the legislative, executive, and judicial. Their government is virtually free of corruption and is ranked 5th out of 175 countries in the Transparency's International 2014 Corruption Perception Index. An independent and fair judiciary system is also implemented throughout the economy, and protection of property rights are strongly enforced. The regulatory systems put into place support commercial activity, allowing for efficient business formations and operations. Switzerland's Property Rights Index currently has a score of 90 out of 100, second highest to Denmark with a score of 95. Switzerland's strong property rights, to include intellectual property rights, has helped their economy grow and maintain. Switzerland is a modern, open market economy which currently holds one of the highest GDP per capita in the world, sitting at $50,087 per capita. The country's economy has a low unemployment rate of 4.5% and a highly skilled labor force. Switzerland has a well-developed financial services industry and manufacturing industry. Its manufacturing industry manufactures metals, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and electronics. Switzerland also has completely open markets with a 0% average tariff rate, resulting in the country thriving off of imports and exports. The country is welcoming towards entrepreneurs, inviting new businesses to invest in the country, another result of why Switzerland's economy is doing so well. Its economic and political stability, transparent legal system, infrastructure, lower corporate tax rates, and efficient capital markets are what makes Switzerland one of the world's most competitive economies. The Swiss economy is tightly linked to happenings of its surrounding European countries. This is one of their main weaknesses. They are responsible for purchasing over half of its exports, which means Switzerland's economic success is dependent on how the rest of Europe's economy is performing. For example, the global financial crisis of 2008, it put a halt on the demand for Swiss exports, which caused them to go into recession also. In order to fix this crisis, the Swiss National Bank implemented a zero interest rate policy to boost the economy and was successful. The Swiss franc's strength has resulted in exports becoming less competitive and lowering the country's projected GDP. For example, from 2011 to 2015, the GDP growth for Switzerland has fallen to less than 2% per year. Also, Switzerland has been under fire for its banking secrecy laws. As a result, they have agreed to reform these laws in order to conform to OECD regulations. The government has also negotiated a double taxation agreement with many countries to incorporate these regulations and standards. The Swiss government is also working on the possibility of imposing taxes on bank deposits held by foreigners. The second country I will be comparing is Iraq. Iraq's government, the Republic Iraq, is a multi-party system consisting of an executive branch, a legislative branch, and federal judiciary branch, similar to the United States. The current head of the executive branch authority is Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi, which also includes the Council of Ministries chosen by the Prime Minister. The federal judiciary is composed of a higher judicial council, the Supreme Court, and other courts regulated by federal law. The legislative branch consists of the Council of Representatives and a Federation Council. Iraq's government is relatively new. It was established in 2005 when the first Iraq Constitution was ratified during Operation Iraqi Freedom. Iraq's newly established government is ridden with corruption and bribery, money laundering, and misuse of public funds. Investigation of government corruption is mostly political, so it is normally overlooked. Iraq has a GDP of $180.1 billion for the year of 2015, resulting in a GDP growth of 3%, but an inflation rate of negative 1.2%. This is a significant increase from 2014, where the GDP growth was only 0.1%. The recent increase in growth is thanks to the recent rise in oil prices and the Iraqi efforts to drive ISIS out of their country. Yet the country is still in distress. The war on ISIS has resulted in an increase of poverty, the displacement of 3.4 million people, and the destruction of core infrastructure. The unemployment rate is also sitting very high at 16.9%. Trade is also extremely important to Iraq's economy, with exports and imports equaling 50% of their GDP. Yet regulatory problems discourage foreign trade and investment, and government-owned initiatives misrepresent the economy's percent. The biggest strength of Iraq's economy is their massive supply of oil, which makes up more than 90% of their GDP. Oil-rich countries such as Kuwait have been able to take their surplus in oil and significantly grow economically from it. Iraq has been unable to do so with their ongoing conflicts and war-ridden state, especially with the recent invasion of ISIS, resulting in ISIS taking over Iraq's main oil refinery at one point in time. Although ISIS no longer controls any of Iraq's oil, the repercussions have had an outstanding effect. With oil making up the majority of Iraq's GDP, the decline in oil prices in 2015 and 2016, coupled with ISIS's past influences, hit the Iraqi economy hard, resulting in a steep decline in their overall GDP. In 2015, Iraq's GDP had dropped from $228.7 billion in 2014 to $180.07 billion in 2015, the biggest drop in GDP since 2008. Iraq's sole reliance on oil as their driver of GDP is one of their biggest weaknesses. The weakness of Iraq's economy, in addition to their dependence on income from oil, includes their unstable security, political situation, and poor business environment. The non-oil economy of Iraq has risen from 5% from 2014 to 2015, but still only makes up about 14% of their economy. The shock of the invasion of ISIS and decline in oil prices have not only reduced growth, but also increased poverty, unemployment, and diverted resources away from investments that would otherwise grow the economy. In recent months, Iraqi forces have been successful in driving out ISIS. They need to continue to improve their overall security and reduce violence in order to flourish economically. The only other option would be to increase non-oil income substantially enough to where oil prices do not have such a huge impact on GDP, but that is not foreseeable. If Iraq can continue to drive the remainder of ISIS out, receive investments into non-oil enterprises, and continue to profit from the recent rise in oil, their economy will grow significantly from here on out. So the third and final country that I'm comparing today is going to be Qatar. Qatar's government is a constitutional monarchy headed by, I'm going to try and say this name, but I'm probably going to butcher it, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, who is referred to as the Emir. The Emir exercises full executive power and has the authority to approve and reject legislation, but only after he has consulted with the 35-member advisory council and cabinet. There are no elections for national leadership. Instead, the next in line of the Al Thani family takes over. Sharia law is the source of all legislation and backbone of the judicial system. It consists of Sharia and civil law courts, which have jurisdiction over criminal, commercial, and civil cases. Property rights exist for those who are citizens of Qatar, but for non-Qataris, they are very limited. There is also no income tax or corporate tax. Instead, foreign competitors who wish to operate in Qatar are taxed a flat 10% corporate rate. Qatar's GDP for 2015 was $164.6 billion US dollars. Oil and gas production make up more than 50% of Qatar's economy, just like Iraq. But with the recent decline in gas prices, their government has shifted to focus on growing their manufacturing and financial sectors. Qatar's GDP per capita, when adjusted by the purchasing power parity, for 2015 was $132,937. Not only does Qatar hold one of the highest GDP per capita in its region, but also in the world ranking number 1. Qatar also boasts an extremely low unemployment rate of 0.2%. The trade is also a huge part of Qatar's economy. The value of imports and exports equals 91% of the country's GDP. Qatar's economy has grown substantially since the 1980s, with the biggest growth beginning in the 2000s. This is because Qatar is rich in natural resources and has over 25 billion barrels in oil reserves, which help them increase their GDP due to exports. There are plenty of other countries in the Middle East who have an abundance of natural resources such as oil, but what sets Qatar apart from the other Middle Eastern countries is why their economy has been so successful is because of their ability to stay out of conflict and violence going on in the surrounding countries. This has allowed their economy to grow and thrive by taking advantage of oil and natural gas in their country and exporting it for a profit. Qatar's government has also in recent years put an emphasis on improving infrastructure, healthcare, and education. All of these are major factors in development economics that improve a country's overall well-being and in the long run, economic stability. They have also begun to invest heavily on infrastructure and other projects such as the 2022 World Cup they are hosting. For the first time, Qatar's GDP has fell from 2014 to 2015 due to a drop in oil prices, but their future is looking bright. They are in their second year of a $200 billion infrastructure upgrade in order to prepare to host the 2022 World Cup. Hosting the World Cup will help stimulate their economy through construction, transportation, and other services. Gas production has increased and oil prices begin to recover, so should export profits. Although growth stalled due to the decline in oil prices, Qatar is right on track towards recovery. By shifting their focus to grow the economy in other ways, they've been able to successfully improve. Investing in infrastructure, manufacturing, and services will help move Qatar away from solely relying on oil and natural gas as their source of income. That way, the next time oil prices drops, their economy will not be hit as hard. GDP growth for Qatar in 2016 is projected at 2.1% and will eventually rise to 3.7% in 2018. So when comparing these three countries, Switzerland has always been a strong, thriving economy. Iraq has always had economic problems but has potential to grow if it implements similar policies and reduces its current state of conflict. Qatar is the perfect example of an economy that has utilized its resources and grown into one of the top economies in the world. Thank you.